This afternoon, we'll continue to explore tensions in the Middle East. I will talk to one Dominican national. I'll repeat. We spoke to him this morning. We're just going to repeat the conversation, and of course, have some reactions. All airports, or most of the airports in that region, have been closed, and persons are looking to leave. These war-torn countries. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk to you.
Brights and Company. Really, Rice and Company. The only company I know with Brights was cooking butter and back and neck. Now in the last valley short, I said Brights. In the old plus level where you have a roofing material and seamless guttering. Yes, 24 gauge governors, all colors. Ever open Nipo gas peel agent. They program the computer to give you the exact size you want. And the seamless guttering aluminum that can better withstand the elements you have in an easy way. So no leaking after a while. And so much more. Brights and Company, the at by 8 bank close to the old mill at Enfield. California 617-2468.
I see Golo in shopping for farming supplies. So I ask you, what are you doing inside Bloombox? You have a farm? You tell me, that's how I sort. I've been married 37 years. Come at my money farm. They say, no, not woman, like land for farming crops. And then you understand, Bloombox is the most affordable on island. Knapsacks starting at only $57.71. Elsewhere, it's $300 plus. Cutlass seeds, seeding trays, nursery pots, sales of potting mix, all at way better prices than anywhere else. Fertilizers, 3-in-1 multi-tool, and so much more. Located on Federation Drive, Goodwill. Second property on the right after the Valley Link Road and on the corner of Drury Lane and Hanover Street in Rosal. Bloombox. Let's bloom together.
There's Smooth.
And then there's Guinness Smooth.
It's a brand new cool.
Incredibly smooth.
Perfectly balanced.
For a smooth and refreshing taste.
So how smooth? Well smooth. Guinness Smooth.
For a smooth and refreshing taste. New Guinness Smooth. Must be 18 years or older. Drink responsibly. Socialize responsibly.
Locally distributed by Belfast Estate Limited.
In Dominica's case, I actually located Tallboy as being the person who eventually introduced what we now know as a full-fledged pan with full scales into Dominica. When he came back to Dominica one time in the late 50s, early 60s, he brought with him a pan made in Trinidad.
Steel pan patty.
Dominica at one point had about 7 or 8 full-fledged steel pans, you know. And that's why Pont Michel actually holds a place of prominence in steel pan in Dominica. There was a full-fledged steel pan. In Portsmouth, there was a pan group in Grand Bay. There was a steel pan also in Maho. There was a steel pan in Massac. In the city, we had 3 steel pans.
Steel pan part 2 and Creole Hundred with Atherton, Happy Matty and Friends. Those Friday on the big station from 10:45 a.m.
So all of these, you can see there was a really interesting support coming from the private commercial sector for the art form. And it wasn't just in mouth. It wasn't just even in finance, because these steel pans used to be used throughout the year.
Dominica, let's retune our bodies, minds, and spirits to the genius of Tallboy Cats. Stafford Joseph, Miguel Dublin, Aaron Emmanuel, Owen Banwell and others, and awaken this slipping giant. Steve Van Part 2 with Happy Matty and Friends, hosted by Ambassador Prince Wright. On the big station 295 FM by Prince Friday from 10:45 a.m. The time is now. There we go. The Pan Resurgence. upon Renaissance, otherwise our children will not forgive us.
The steel band playing the Calypso on the road was what determined what was the fabrics of the year, and we now know it as the road match.
All right, Dominique, we did explore this morning. We'll continue to explore the chaos in the Middle East. While travelers, including some Caribbean nationals, may be stranded since most of the airports are closed. As this Iran war continues, it's chaos in the Middle East. 117, we're going to spend some time to explore this situation.
The general feeling is the longer it goes on, the more edgy people are getting. You can feel today there's a bit more anxiety is the best description. There's a lot more people in reception, asking questions, trying to find out what the latest is. It just feels as if people are now, right, this is real, and I don't really like it. This is how it feels. Now we're safe. To be honest with you, now I've done a lot of traveling, so I've been around. I was just thinking, if I get a bed, I'm happy. Was all I was thinking. So I wasn't that phased. I was a bit, to be honest with you, even though it was pandemonium, I was pretty relaxed. I was like, I'll get a bed. A bit worrying when we were there. There were quite a few bangs. The airport got hit while we were there, so that was, I think then that brought it home. And we're only about 10 miles from the airport here. So we got here, then another queue, because it took like 3 hours to get to the hotel room. But when we were in the lobby, I think the other hotel got hit by the missile, and we thought a bus had actually hit the hotel because you could feel the shockwave from the missile, and it felt like a vehicle had hit our hotel, and we were how many miles away. Bit of screaming and worrying then. I think that kind of brought it home to everyone. So then it was a bit more panicky. The people in the hotel and the staff and the people of the Emirates, I mean, they're just brilliant. They are the nicest, kindest people I have met. Really calm, get everyone a room, lots of people panicking, but they were just great. The feed.
والله احنا جينا للمطار وشفنا يعني الوضع اللي صار، الوضع المفاجئ، يعني موربك. طيراننا ساعة بالأربعة العصر على بغداد، فكل الرحلات هسه متوقفة، يعني على قطر وعلى الدوحة وعلى الرياض، يعني كل الخليج تقريبا الخطية ويا مسافرين، يعني حالهم من حالنا. والخطوط الجوية العراقية كلها متوقفة رحلات لبغداد، فيعني صار وضع مفاجئ.
So one of the persons caught in this chaos is Dominican Mr. Trevor Johnson Tossi, we call him. and he shared his story with us this morning. Want to share again? I'm sure we'll get some reactions there somewhere. Let's listen to his story. Trevor Johnson, Tossi, his nickname. Let's listen to his story. Iran-Israeli war going on. Paint a picture of what the actuality is. I know you have seen some bombs, just maybe a few yards away from you. What can you tell us?
Yeah, well, since the Israelis and the Americans attacked Iran, Iran has been sending bombs all over the region. I'm in Doha, Qatar, and of course I've been seeing bombs down. We've seen a few fires. So that's what we're getting in Doha. Bahrain, Dubai, the UAE, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Kuwait. They're getting it a bit harder. But I think now it seems that they are stepping it up in Qatar now. Because for the past few days they were hitting, as I said, Dubai, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Abu Dhabi a lot. The bases, and the embassies, they are destroying the embassies and bases in these countries. Today they're stepping it up in Qatar. They attacked the base, the American base, because the largest base in the Middle East is in Qatar. And so they sent a few today at the base and at the embassy.
So who's the day? The Iranians?
The Iranians.
Okay.
Iranians.
But why would they want to get Qatar involved in this? I mean, Qatar.
I don't think they want to get Qatar involved. They want all the Middle East countries that facilitate, in their minds, facilitating the US by having their bases in their countries. They want them that they would attack the bases. So I don't think they're really attacking the countries, but really the bases. But of course, these countries have an obligation to protect the interests of their guests. You know, they are the hosts, so and of course the Americans would have provided them with anti-missile interceptors.
Have they reacted?
You know, so yeah, they've put down intercepted quite a few bombs already. Of course, some will go through, but most of them have been intercepted, and the debris from them are the ones that actually destroying buildings and injuring people.
Tell me, I mean, given your experience, you come from a peaceful region, you've never seen this, happen in your life. How do you feel about this?
Well, I mean, what people are feeling in Palestine, I don't want to feel it. It is almost like during a hurricane. You're feeling the wind, you're hearing the wind outside, but you cannot leave your home. You have to stay put, that's what you're feeling. And as I said, we are not seeing what the people in Palestine are seeing. I mean, the country people are still driving, although they've told people to stay indoors. But it's not a good feeling, because, for example, our apartment is on the 26th floor of a hotel. Could you imagine it being hit? What's going to happen? So these are the things. In fact, I don't sleep during the night.
You don't?
Because my wife is the one. My wife works here. Yeah, my wife works here. Everybody's working from home now. So I stay up at night, and during the day I try to sleep. Because somebody has to be up. You know what I mean? We've packed stuff already that as soon as something happens, we'll try to reach the basement, run down the steps. We actually did a dry run the other day.
Okay.
So what we're trying to do now, because the airspace in the Middle East is shut right now.
It's closed
all over the place. Yeah, except Saudi now. Saudi's allowing flights to go. So, for example, the Trinidad government got the Saudis to waive the visa for entry. So if Trinidad want to drive to Saudi, they could do that. I reached out to the Prime Minister. He actually reached out to me on Saturday.
Good.
and asked me how I'm doing. I thought that was a good.
Gesture.
Again, he's my prime minister, so
Right.
I mean, he has to look out for his. And so they are trying to actually send a diplomatic note to the embassy, to the Saudis, to get a waiver, so I will be able to leave too. The only issue is that when you're up in the sky on a plane, that is the other problem. So that is another scary part. To get to Saudi, we have to drive for 7 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have to take a flight to London. But the scary part is being on a plane, because the Iranians are not letting off. I don't know, the Middle East is going to change right now. Because the Iranians, as far as they're concerned, they're not going to lose that war. And I believe they are very well prepared for the war. I don't think the Americans, the Americans underestimated them. I don't know if Trump believed that was a Venezuela. They could just go in, grab one man, and the country will fall apart. The Iranians are not like that. You kill the spiritual, you kill the Ayatollah, and you believe that, that is the fall. This is like killing Saddam, and that was it. Killing Gaddafi, and that was it. These people are too organized, Matt. These people are very organized. One man dead, next day somebody replaces him. So
because I'm getting the impression from Trump that it could have been or should have been a short-lived war.
I don't know how they could. I mean, they said that the Israelis and the Americans are good in intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
How could they believe that if they are that good? I mean, even me who knows, I know a little about what is going on here. Little. I mean, 0.0001%.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't believe that the war would have ended. I mean, we came in last week. We came in right after Carnival because we went home for Carnival.
Trinidad.
And we came in. Yeah, and we came in. And as soon as I arrived, I told my wife, let's go shopping. I knew the war was going to start as soon as we arrived.
Mm-hmm.
And we went, and I said, you see that shit? We're not going to go out anytime soon. I knew that.
But you want to get out as soon as you can, though. You see the window?
Yeah. Boy, the Caribbean, boy, now you know how sweet life is, boy. We have our little hurricanes every year. We have some little criminals doing a little nonsense in the Caribbean, but boy, we good where we are. Trust me. I mean, when you're in Doha, it is very, very safe.
Mm-hmm.
Without the war, I mean, you could walk any time of the night. My wife could get out and walk at any hour of the night. You have no problems. But boy, I would rather be back home, honestly.
And you intend to come back home soon?
Yeah. As soon as we get a chance. I mean, my wife could work remotely. And the thing is that, this year she said that is her last year, being in the Middle East. She's really fed up of being around.
Okay.
Time to go home. So, I mean, it might just be a quicker move, return, yeah.
Do you know of any other Dominicans that may be affected? I mean, you're in that area?
I in a party, I met a Dominican lady. Her sister works. She knows me, but I've never met her before.
Okay.
So that's the only Dominican. Maybe the others working around. I don't know. Dominicans are mostly in Dubai.
Uh-huh.
In Dubai.
And you don't think that it will affect those in Dubai as well?
Of course, it is affecting them. Everybody's in dust too. Remember, I told you earlier that Dubai started getting it first. Remember, Dubai has a lot of Westerners, so they could attack the hotels and things like that. Whereas in Qatar, they are mostly people from Asia, East Asia.
Mm-hmm.
Indians, Pakistanis, and Filipinos. A lot of these people are down here. Whereas in Dubai, Dubai is the capital of Sodom and Gomorrah.
So you would advise
parties.
You would advise those that can to leave that region.
Well, the Americans are advising everybody, all their citizens, to leave, although they cannot leave. Why would you want to stay here?
I know.
You know, everybody is, that's what people are thinking. People are actually deciding whether or not they even want to return here to work again, you know.
I asked that question yesterday as it relates to how do you think this war in the Middle East, Iran, Israel, US would affect the Caribbean region? Or do you think it would?
Well, anytime, you know, there's a saying, anytime, let's say somebody sneezes somewhere, it affects the world. I mean, oil and gas prices are going up immediately. I mean, small islands, small economies like Dominica, Canada cannot take that. You know, so that is one thing. I mean, we don't have a huge manufacturing industry, but the little we have we're going to be affected. Prices are going to go up because you need oil and gas to run industries. So, you know, a businessman is not going to lose out. So everything we import the prices are going to go up. I mean, they're expecting oil to go up as high as $200.
Wow.
That is the expectation. When you listen to the news, that's what they predicted. That is murder for people, for Dominicans, you know. And the other thing is travel. The Iranians are now saying that if their embassy in Lebanon is attacked, they're going to attack Americans all around the world. Think about it. Their embassy in Barbados, there are Americans in Dominica. There are cruise ships coming to Dominica. You understand what I'm saying? You know, if you want to attack people, you just send in your suicide bombers to handle them. So who is going to travel again? You know, traveling to the Middle East is going to be to be affected too much. So imagine they're going to be affected. Hopefully, the people that come to you know to the Middle East will start going to the Caribbean, going to Dominica. You know, hopefully our international airport is completed quickly. You know, so
and that's the thought is we have a lot of Iranian economic citizens, and if they're looking for peace, they might want to come home to Dominica as well, or the Caribbean.
Yeah. I mean, you have two sets of people. You have those who really want to leave the part of the world and start a new life somewhere, and of course there are those who are criminals. There are those who may be the ones we have to be looking out for to attack the Americans anywhere in the world. So we have to really be careful too. You know, we would want the good ones to come. Any country would want the good people to come to their country, even America. So we have to be careful of that too. You know, we of course we're not going to be to pretend that criminals don't have access to our passport. Of course they do. But of course, at the same time, of course, there are good people who have it too. We're interested in developing in Dominica. We're interested in maybe even coming down to Dominica to live. You know, I'm sure.
With all of this going on,
I
wouldn't be surprised. You know, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah,
they want to live.
Yeah, anything by
anything at this time.
Yeah, these people in this part of the world, they're different. You know, they are fighters. Dying means nothing to them. I mean, the Ayatollah, he could have escaped. They asked him to move. They expected him they expect the Israelis to come and lick him up. Yeah, and he said no. He said he's 80 years. You know, if he cannot save his people, why he have to go? When all these people are safe, he will be the last to go. You know, so these people, when they die, they believe they are martyrs. You know, friend, me and you afraid a little wind blowing and we afraid to death.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but these people, they're different. Look, they're getting brutalized every day, and they're still staying in their place. They don't want to go anywhere. They don't want to be repatriated to Dominica. As far as they're concerned, that is their land. They rather die in their land. They are different people, boy. They're different, and you have to look at the history of these people. The history of these people are always about fighting for their land. Land is important to them, you know. So don't play around their land.
Wow.
So they are different. We don't have belly for that yet. We don't diabetic.
But again, Mr. Johnson, I just want to wish you the best, and I hope
You
you
call
can.
me Mr. Johnson, that's call me Tossi.
Tossi, okay, Tossi. Now tell me. I mean, as you said, you're hoping that you could leave soon, and you're going through. You might go to Saudi Arabia and try to fly down to London and come back up.
Once as I said, the Prime Minister and the embassy in Dubai, they sent out a diplomatic note to get me to get all of us again, not me, everybody.
Yes.
Every Dominican who benefit from that will get a waiver, because as it is now, I need a visa to go to Saudi. The Trinidad and Tobago government have already gotten a waiver for their citizens. And once I saw that, because my wife got it on a WhatsApp, I informed both the Prime Minister and the ambassador, and they actually sent out the diplomatic note already. So once that is sorted out and I can leave, I gone.
And I know
even see me in Dominica to chill out.
I know flying home is another terrible thing, because you're thinking all up there, something might just hit you, huh?
It is. It is. I'll have to take a few shots of gin and fall asleep. Because I don't want to know if I'm going down. I don't want to know what is happening at all.
Anyway,
it's serious. It's serious. I mean, it's serious.
It's very serious. Of course, the voice of Trevor Johnson Tossi in Qatar, in the Middle East. Just yesterday, the government of Dominica expressed its deep concern over the dangerous escalation of tension in the Middle East, including recent developments which have heightened insecurity across the wider Gulf region. At this delicate moment, Dominica underscores the urgent need to be calm, restrained, and responsible. Quote, we firmly believe that even the most serious disputes must be addressed through dialogue, diplomacy, and full respect for international law. We are particularly concerned by actions which threaten the sovereignty and security of countries in the Gulf region, placing civilian lives at risk and further destabilizing an already fragile region. Any widening of the conflict will only deepen uncertainty, intensify suffering, and diminish the prospects for peace. The government of Dominica applauds the leadership, restraint, and maturity demonstrated by the governments of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and Bahrain. Dominica supports all genuine international and regional efforts aimed at this escalation and humanitarian relief and the achievement of just and lasting peace. Our thoughts are with all those affected by this crisis. And this is a time for wisdom, statesmanship, and renewed commitment to peace. The people of the region and the wider international community deserve a future shaped by stability, dialogue, and hope. On the telephone with me is Mr. Athimate, who's been monitoring the situation, and I think he heard most of the thoughts of Trevor Johnson, one of those caught in the Middle East. Athimate, good afternoon to you. What are your takeaways?
Good afternoon, Mark. Thank you so much for an opportunity, and also thank you to Trevor for his insightful observations on what must be a very tense and challenging situation in which he finds himself out there in Dubai. He said a couple of things that I believe have very direct relevance for us. One of them has to do with the fact that anything happening anywhere in the world affects everyone everywhere in the world. I'm paraphrasing what he said. And the fact is, if we know that, if we are aware, for example, as he used the example of oil and oil prices going up to $200 a barrel. In the U.S., it's projected that a price per gallon of fuel for your car will go up towards $7, $8, $9, maybe even $10, etc. It means that every single item that has to be transported using engines that need fuel, whether it be by car, by boat, or by plane, that the cost of moving cargo and people is going to skyrocket. The implications for us on the ground are very obvious. We import fuel. And if the price of gasoline or diesel goes up, and I'm hearing out of Trinidad, we're getting reports that Trinidad is kind of rubbing its hands together and saying, we're going to get a break now because the price of oil and gas is going to go up, so we will start making some money again. That personalized, selfish attitude is exactly what Trevor is warning us against. He's saying, be aware that these things are going to happen, but without saying it, he's suggesting very strongly to us that we better start making provisions for behaving differently, for acting differently, so that we can mitigate or reduce the impact of these changes that are taking place way out there in Asia on our tiny economies and our local situation. And that would include, for example, taking a hard look at the fact that we're in a situation where most of the Caribbean is depending on imports to feed itself. So we are finding ourselves at greater risk now than we were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, when we used to produce a significant portion of the food that we were consuming. Today it is shifted. In some islands, 80% of the food consumed by the local population is imported. Dominica is a little bit lower, maybe 70%, but that is significant. So it means, what arrangements do we make, not just as individual country, island states, but what arrangements do we make as a region to ensure that there is enough food available to us at affordable prices, so we don't run into a situation where, as a result of high and rising prices, people cannot eat well. You have to reduce from 3 meals a day to 2 and then maybe to 1. So the significance of what Trevor is saying is that we should have already by now. And if we haven't, we better hurry up and put in place arrangements for addressing what will likely be a significantly increased cost of food, hence availability of food, and significantly, a country like Dominica and many of the other islands have the capacity and the potential to produce up to 30 or 40% of what we need to eat. So efforts need to be in place urgently for that. And I'm tired of hearing our leaders talk about it. I'm tired of hearing them refer to projects and programs that they have going on, where a farmer can come in and get a little money to do this and a little money to that. These things are matters of national and regional priority that must receive the full weight and support, not just of governments, but of private sector, so that supermarket owners must be placed on alert that when locally produced food becomes available, it must receive priority for purchase and for distribution through their mechanism. It must mean also that those of us who would end up producing must produce up to a standard and on a regularly available basis, so that the services provided by supermarkets and shops and stores and vendors can be sustained over time. Our failure to act already means that we are already behind and have catch-up to play with regards to food. Transportation also will impact us. Remember, Trevor has said, the cost of travel is going to shoot through the sky. We are now all in the region, including Dominica, much more dependent on having visitors come to our islands and our region than we were before. And that means travel by air in most cases. Although from Martinique, Guadeloupe, St. Lucia, and so we still can depend on sea travel on the ferry, but even the ferries require fuel, by the way. So it means, how are we going to adjust ourselves to the fact that people who want to travel to Dominica for a vacation may not be able to afford to travel. That Dominicans living overseas who, like Trevor, are getting ready to come home may find that the cost of the airline ticket to get home will be 3 or 4 times what they are normally paying. So these crimps, these pressures on the travel industry, that means tourism, and that means family. So where are the plans? What plans should we have in place? Right now, we do not have a regional air carrier anymore. We used to have Liat, we used to have Biwi, we used to have Air Jamaica, we used to have a number of regionally owned air carriers. We do not have one today. How important is it to have control and management over regional travel? You can see how why it would be important. Because the decision making about where the planes go, when, and at what price would be within our ambit to affect. Right now, it's within the ambit of the owners of the foreign airlines to decide on that. So, Trevor is giving us some signals. It's pressing some buttons, which if we're listening very carefully, we'll realize these are not just the utterings of somebody anxious to get out of Dubai because of the war. But there's a thoughtful person saying to us, hey guys, y'all are not in Asia. I am in Asia, but I can tell you that these things are going to be happening and they are going to affect us even if we're 4,000 miles away. So we need to be taking account of what Trevor said. Trevor went on to speak about the attitude of Iranians to land. Now let's be clear. Iran is populated by a people who are known to have a history of over 4,000 years as a people. The United States has a history of about 250, 270 years. So understand that we're dealing with a mature civilization when we're talking about Iran. And we're talking about other states in Asia and in East Asia. These are people like India, like China, who've been on God's earth for thousands of years. Not like us, who were transported here 200 or 300 years ago and find that we are the if you will, the persons who came from, and that our ancestors, although they lived on a continent for thousands of years, we are only living here for a few hundred years. And so what are the adjustments we need to make? It raises the point. It means particularly because we find ourselves not on a continent anymore, but on a small island. In our case, an island of 300 square miles, less than 200,000 acres of land. That's the totality of this acreage of Dominica. So it means that we cannot afford to make too many errors of judgment and planning on how we are going to use that small acreage of land to feed house, clothes, water, etc., and take care of our population, which, as you intimated from Trevor, could end up growing because there might be people who want to come and live here because we appear to be a safer place to settle. So it raises the question, and Trevor is raising the question without saying it explicitly. Be very careful what you do, how you do it. Make sure you do it well, and he's suggesting, I would say, the first time. Do it well the first time because you may not have time to adjust and fix it. So he mentioned verbally an international airport. We have to make sure we do that well. It's not a thing you scramble and do. You have to make sure you do it well. You're building a house. You don't hurry up and build a house because you want to finish by next week. You make sure it's done well because you expect it to last and serve you for 30, 40, 50, 60 years. So too, everything else we do. Agriculture, there are areas of Dominica well suited for intensive farming. There are areas not so well suited, areas suited for tree crop farming, etc., etc. So it means that we have to be much more scientific, much more deliberate about where we put things. And it's not just a matter of, oh, the minister tell me I can go there, I can get a piece of land there, I can put my house there. And so that insanity will ensure that we will run out of space to do things well, because when we try to do it well, we'll find somebody has gone in there and messed it up and put something there that is not suited to the area. So planning, taking our time to do it well, probably one of the most important departments of government today and from now on is planning, the planning division in the planning department. And that the instructions that they give and the guidance they provided as to how to proceed with your project on a particular area of land in Dominica, we heed it, we pay attention to it, and we don't do the insanity that we see going on, for instance, in certain parts of the island now where projects go forward, huge projects are going forward without planning permission. And it means the danger to the limited land space that we have is being heightened. At a time when, again, going back to Trevor, he suggested we should be probably preparing not only for a returning population of Dominicans, but a returning population of new citizens who want to take advantage of their Dominican passport to find a safe haven for themselves and their family. And so I'm raising these issues because as I listened to Trevor, although he didn't articulate the implications of what he was saying, for me, some of the implications of what he said are what I'm drawing. Okay, my friend? So let's be clear. We have a habit of listening to who is saying what, not what the person is saying.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to urge Dominicans, I've just turned 80. Ayatollah was 80 years old, so I am in good company. I'm in good company. I'm ready to cross over. I do, that kind of stuff. Life has assumed a calming meaning to people like myself, And when the cautionary and foolishness and dotishness goes on around you, you have a box you can put all of that in so that it doesn't clutter your mind. I'm listening to the statement you read that our government just issued about heeding international law. Matthias, is that the same government that some time ago said to us, no law, not even the highest law of our land, can tell him what to do?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the same person?
Yep.
Is that, come on. Let's be very clear. You see, people can malpalate when they are unclear as to what they're saying, or they can malpalate when they have a deliberate intent to do mischief. I don't know which one it is. Whatever it is, stop it. Come to grips with reality. And if you need to adhere to international law, you need to adhere to national law, and in our case, regional law. So, for example, Trevor is in a situation where there's conflict and soldiers are bearing arms and firing missiles and so on. The people of Salisbury had their own experience of war, which was facilitated by the government of Dominica and other governments in our CARICOM family. Let's be careful. That wasn't just an error of judgment. That was a failure to understand and appreciate what it means, number one, to be family, a family of nations, and also to appreciate that the world today is walking a very fine line between peace and war. And so we have to be clear which one it is we are promoting and facilitated. I would say that it sounds to me that there are many governments now in the Caribbean who have chosen to facilitate conflict and war for personal or political reasons. We have to stop that. If we cannot stop that, we just have to agree, well, Elas Papa Monje, it's best you take us and go with us. But the truth is, and that's what our dear brother Trevor, in his own inimitable way, is alerting us to. He is in Dubai. We are in Dominica. But what's happening to him over there is alerting him to the fact that conflict and war is not a stranger to us in the Caribbean. And if we want a place of peace, we have to, on a daily basis, to be working for peace in our families, our neighborhoods, our schools, our businesses, and our countries as a whole. We cannot encourage conflict when it suits us and expect to be living in a space, a country of peace.
All right, Anthony Martin, thank you. On that note, we'll take a few calls and we'll, of course, allow another brother to chase peace. Alvin Thomas will be with us in the next few minutes, observing what's going on there. This crisis in the Middle East. On the telephone, yes, good morning to you. Good afternoon, yeah?
Good afternoon. This is William Mario.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I have a concern, my brother. I have a concern. As I told you, I would have called.
But I did tell you can call me tomorrow.
Yeah, but I don't know if I will. I don't know if I'll be able to call tomorrow.
Well, I'm telling you, tomorrow would be the better time to express your concern, huh? Because we're dealing with some international issue and we don't want to conflict with something local that you can wait. You know? Understand? I understand your concern, but let's try to be patient a bit there and we can talk to your issue tomorrow. Okay? Thank you. Thank you. Hello, talk to me on the telephone, yes? Mystical, how you doing, please?
That's been a while, man. Yeah, but you see what happening now there now, but not thinking about Southern Africa, the Caribbean, you know. You have to be careful. Trump moves like a madman, you know, and I don't know what's happening now, but you do have to be careful of certain things that are going around and coming around now, you know. It's a big concern. But anyway, let's see what happens. All the best, brother, man. All the best.
All right, we have to watch carefully. Hello, talk to me on the telephone, yes?
Yes, man. Good afternoon to you and your listeners.
Good afternoon,
Matt,
yes.
in just listening to after there, I would like to tell us, if you see this goes on until maybe June, July, we can kiss the Creole Festival goodbye, because the prices of oil and the flight to come to Dominica is going to be off the staff. So we can kiss the Creole Festival goodbye, man. Good afternoon. I'm done.
Good afternoon to you. You're predicting with the future there. Hello, yes?
Good afternoon, Matt.
Good afternoon to you, sir. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Certainly, the world these days, because of global politics, is interrelated. And what is happening in the Middle East, though we may think it's far away, is certainly going to affect us. It's going to affect us in one way or the other. We do not produce oil, and the prices of oil have begun going up. So that is one factor that we must concern ourselves with. But more importantly, our food import bill for the region is about $6 billion US. And there was a plan by CARICOM to decrease the importation of food in the region by 25% by the year 2025. That was not totally achieved, and so they've moved it to 25 by 2030. But we in Dominica, how do we respond to that? Because certainly the food supply chain is going to be affected. Whether we like it or not, the food supply chain is going to be affected. And we must now look within ourselves as Dominicans and say what it is we can do to position ourselves for this imminent crisis that will face us. And so we've been blessed with good rainfall, with good fertile soil. I think it is time for us to have an emergency national plan. And part of that plan will have to involve what is the food consumption pattern of we as Dominicans? How much do we consume of different crops? And begin a rapid planting program, manage, organize under certain standards, like Afi said, to ensure that we can prepare ourselves by planting and producing a significant amount of the food that we require for our daily staple. We can say this, we can say that, but unless we have a collective national plan to respond to producing our food, this is going to even affect us more. World War II, there was this song, Chueyo, Chueyo, pour tout le monde manger. It was people coming from the French islands coming over to Dominica, and Dominica had food that we could kill animals and our livestock and share and feed others. We may not be in that same position today if things escalate further. So we must begin to recognize that agriculture is an important component of our country's development and sustainability. And it is important that we do not sleep on it, but it is something that must be acted upon immediately. Because if this crisis continues, the country that survives is the one who can produce its own food. Thank you, Matt, and good afternoon.
We are open 7 days a week with the top of the line products. Well stocked supermarket and pharmacy, health and beauty care, fresh produce and meats prepared daily, hot and cold kitchen, ready to go meals, sandwiches, salads, and desserts at your fingertips. Easy access, located on the front, environment friendly, and our staff are approachable and ready to assist. Have you figured out who we are? You got it. Fresh your one stop. Fresh market,
In Dominica's case, I actually located Tallboy as being the person who eventually introduced what we now know as a full-fledged pan with full scales into Dominica. Because when he came back to Dominica one time, late 50s, early 60s, he brought with him a pan made in Trinidad.
Steel pan part 2.
Dominica at one point had about 7 or 8 full-fledged steel bands, and that's why Pont Michel actually holds a place of prominence in steel pan in Dominica. There was a full-fledged steel pan in Portsmouth. There was a pan group in Grand Bay. There was a steel band also in Maho. There was a steel band in Massac. In the city, we had 3 steel bands.
Steel pan part 2 and Creole Handbit with Afatan, Afi, Matty and friends. Those Friday on the big station from 10:45 a.m.
So all of these, you can see there was a really interesting support coming from the private commercial sector for form. And it wasn't just in mouth, it wasn't just even in finance, because these steel bands used to be used throughout the year.
Dominica, let's retune our bodies, minds, and spirits to the genius of Tallboy Cats. For Joseph, Miguel W., Aaron Emmanuel, Owen Banwell, and others, and awaken this slipping giant. Steve Van Patu, Matty and friends, hosted by Ambassador Prince Wax, and the big station 295 FM on this Friday from 10:45 a.m. The time is now. The rebirth, the pan resurgence, the pan renaissance, the rise of our children. will not forgive us.
The Sylvan playing the Calypso on the road was what determined what was the favorite for the year, and we now know it as the road match.
All right, Dominic, we're here. It's 2:06. We're sharing some thoughts on the Middle East and the crisis that will emerge for us here in the Caribbean region. Put it simply, if this continues, we have to tie our waists. Mr. Alvin Thomas, former General Secretary of the Public Service Union in Dominica, of course, a technocrat within the tourism ministry as well. For many years, he's been following the events. And here are his takeaways. Mr. Thomas, good afternoon to you, sir.
Yes, good afternoon, Matt. How are you doing?
I'm here taking it one day at a time. I suspect you're observing what's going on there in the Middle East, and you seem to be very concerned.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, Matt. Let me first of all say good afternoon to you and your listeners, and to all the persons, all our Dominicans at home and abroad. And thank you for the opportunity to just share my thoughts on the whole thing. I listened yesterday, of course. I heard former Ambassador Crispin Guerra give quite a splendid narrative of what's unfolding from a diplomatic standpoint, someone who has quite a bit of experience in that area. And today I heard from my friend Tossi. Let me just say, Tossi, if you're listening, good afternoon to you, my friend. Stay safe. And again, I just heard from Afi, my friend Afi, Mr. Martin. And the last caller, which I recognized, it sounded to me somewhat like Mr. Barron. I may be wrong.
No, it's Mr. Errol Emmanuel. Errol Emmanuel.
Oh, Errol Emmanuel.
Yes.
Okay, all right. But let me just the time you allow me, Mark, bear with me for a little, and let me just try and put some things in context. In light of what Afi says, and even the last caller, Mr. Emmanuel, let me try and put some things in context before I make some suggestions in terms of where I think we should be going as a people. First of all, let me say from the onset that a war is on now. Okay? There's no ifs about it. United States, along with Israel, is in a war with Iran. It's happening. To the extent that the Congress now is trying to debate whether they are going to approve the continuation or the stoppage of the war. But we know that, that's just going to be theatric up there. But a war is on. And if that war is on, then certainly, as most of your callers have said already, it's going to have a direct impact on us. I'm not even saying indirect, a direct impact on us. And by us, I mean Dominica, and by extension, the rest of the islands in the region. And I will begin by saying, one, we must not panic as a people. That's the worst thing you can do. We must be prepared, and we must stay focused. I think it was an American economist and policy entrepreneur, Paul Romer, who said, quote, "A crisis is a terrible thing to waste." So I will begin by putting some context. Why the economies of most of the, and I would say, the region, CARICOM, and to some extent our ECCB region, our Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, that small grouping. Our activities are largely driven with tourism, financial services, and I'm going to add remittances as well. And I will come to that later and show you where remittances fit in the whole scheme of things. Are the core pillars that indicate what we do as a region. They are characterized, as one might say, by the limited industrial output, the high public debt, I think a few referenced that, and our weak productive base. The last caller mentioned that. So agriculture continues to remain as a really under-leveraged sector throughout the region, especially in the Windward Islands. And that is where it creates and it contributes to the food security problem that we're having. One might even add that, rural unemployment and other stuff like export diversification and all that stuff. So the region remains heavily reliant on what we would say as external markets to meet our domestic consumption needs. And let me just share with you some data that I was able to pull up from the ECCB website. According to the ECCB data, trade deficit persists and are widening. That's from the ECCB. It indicates that the region's dependency on import is central to its economic imbalance. Imports have steadily climbed from 9.6 billion Eastern Caribbean dollars in 2022 to $10.4 billion in 2024. You hear the figures I'm quoting you, Matt? $9.6 billion, that is Eastern Caribbean dollars, in 2022 to $10.4 billion in 2024. Conversely, export remains marginal, rising from a $674 million in 2022 to $780 million in 2024. So right now you can see the imbalance. You're talking about $9.6 billion that we bring in by way of stuff and machineries and other stuff in 2022 to a mere $674 million that we got. So herein lies the problem. The U.S. again continues to be our dominant trading partner for for most of the ECCU member states, and that is followed, of course, by China and the United Kingdom. So anything that's happening in the U.S. and given what is taking place now as it relates to the war is going to impact us in the region. Food security is very fragile. As the last caller rightly pointed out, in 2019, CARICOM committed to reducing their food import bill by 25% by 2025. They had it, what he said, 25 by 2025. They did not meet that target. And therefore, they have shifted that to 2030. In 2023, again, information data from the ECCU, ECCB, says that 7 out of the 8 ECCU states had registered higher food imports, with St. Lucia and Antigua and Barbuda recording the sharpest increase. And since then have steadily been increasing from 1.8 billion, that is, in 2019, to 2.1 billion in 2023. So clearly, we are heavily dependent on imports from outside, and in particular from the United States of America. According to the Central Statistics Office for Dominica now, I'm going to Dominica more specific, imported goods was worth $1.2 billion, which is $444 million US between 2021 and 2024. $1.2 billion between 2021 and 2024. And that is in stark contrast to the exports to the U.S., mainly agricultural products, produce, essential oils, lotion, artisanal crafts, to that's a mere 4.4 million EC dollars, which is just about 1.6 million US dollars. So you see the disparity right there again. For Dominica, that is, 1.2 billion as compared to 4.2 billion. Okay? So if a war is taking place as it is taking place now in the US, you can rest assured that is going to impact us. Okay? What are some of the things we are importing into Dominica? And let me just share with you briefly what are some of the areas where all that money is going into. So one can get a good perspective of what is taking place. In terms of the food import bill, the three main areas that attract this is meat, cereals, and fruits and vegetables. Okay? Again, data from the ECCU indicated that over a period of 20, I think it was 2019 to 2023, you had the food import bill moved for that region. And when I say the ECCB, let me just for the benefit of our listeners, we're talking about Antigua, Dominica, St. Vincent, Grenada, St. Lucia, and Montserrat, and I think Anguilla is also associate members of that, making up that region. Moved from a $1.5 billion to a high of $1.8 billion in 2022. And here's something that is rather interesting. Again, that relates to Dominica. In 2023, the increase, the overall increase from 2022 over to 2023 for the islands that I just mentioned, Anguilla, 2022 to 2023, keep that in mind. Anguilla, 2%. Antigua and Barbuda, 24%. Dominica, 28%. That is increase, in your food import bill. Grenada was the only one that had a decrease of 1%. Montserrat, 14%. St. Kitts Nevis, 10%. St. Lucia had a mere 1% increase. And St. Vincent and Grenadines also had a 1% increase. And we're talking about, like I indicated a while ago, the meat, cereal, and fruits and vegetables contribute to 53% of your total food import. So clearly, Matt, if that trend continues as it is likely to, because there is no signs of it going up anytime soon, what it is, it means, therefore, the war that is taking place in Iran with America and Israel is going to affect us significantly. Let me spend a little time before I get to specifics now in terms of what I think can be done, in terms of some ideas as we move forward. Let me just spend a little time on just to paint a little picture in terms of the situation in the U.S.
Before you go, though, CARICOM, Mr. Thomas, seem to be very quiet, as this war seems to go. And he has a little statement here and there, but in terms of preparing the people for the future, the Caribbean people, for what is to come, they're very, very quiet.
Sorry, who you said is quiet?
I said CARICOM, including, of course, Dominica. CARICOM leaders have been very quiet.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. And it's very unfortunate, given the fact that they just came up from a meeting at the end of February. And I will tell you one more thing, Matt, on that. I took the opportunity to go through the entire addresses made by the outgoing chairman, Andrew Holness of Jamaica, of Jamaica, and the incoming chairman, who is Dr. Terence Drew of St. Kitts Nevis. And in none of their addresses, I'm telling you, none of their addresses, the question of food security was mentioned specifically and addressed. They talk in general about all of the stuff, but they never address the elephant in the room, which is that food security, which I told you a while ago, contributed to well over $10 billion to our money that is going out. So that clearly tells you this 25 in 25 and now 25 in 2030 is just words. I mean, what efforts are we doing? I know Dominica is adopting the same position of 25 by 25 and with the intention of possibly reducing their import bill. But even the IMF made some predictions in terms of growth in the Dominica's economy, and they put it by a mere 3.3% this year as the IMF. According to the IMF growth, GDP growth, they are projected 4.5% in 2024, 4.2 last year, 2025, and they're projected 3.3% this year, 2026, and maybe a 2.5% by 2030. So clearly, we are not growing in any leaps and bounds. But let me just briefly say with regards to the U.S. A lot of folks are talking about Trump and Trump this and Trump that. But I'll tell you one thing. The new administration under Donald Trump is focusing on what he calls America first. Make America great again. That's his policy agenda. But I will say to those of us who can go back and go into history that posture of America first is not anything new to America. It was first framed by President Woodrow Wilson, the 20th President of the United States. He was the first person, the U.S. President, who espouses American patriotism, protectionist trade policies, and a mostly hands-off approach to international relations. That was by Woodrow Wilson back then. And guess what, Mark? He was a Democrat. He is a Democrat, not a Republican. So that is why persons must get away from the notion that it's a Republican or it's Trump. I mean, this is how America has been for a very long time. And whether it's a Democrat president in the White House or Republican president in the White House, they're going to espouse what is in the best interest of America. America has one of the largest economies, GDP of well over $30 trillion. That is what it was by the end of 2024. So they're a huge country, a huge economy, and they're going to do what is right for them. The EU, the ECCU deficit is widening as we speak. Okay, the trade deficit, that is, it's moving now. It's from a 4 point. It was a 3.4 billion in 2019 to now a 4.3 billion dollars. In other words, we are bringing in more than we are sending out. So the question remains, therefore, what do we do? And before I get to what do we do, let me just speak briefly on the matter of remittances, because I think that is extremely important, very important. A lot of us may not be paying attention to that. And bear in mind, when I started a few minutes ago, I indicated to you that the economies of most of the countries in the region, and in particular, us in the ECCU and the ECCU region, is based on services, tourism, financial services, and remittances. These are the core pillars. And let me share with you something in terms of Dominica. First of all, let me just say though that you may have heard of that big beautiful act that was passed in the U.S. Just about last year, July 4th of last year. They passed into law what is called the Big Beautiful Act. I'm sure you heard about that. And one of the things contained in this act that some people are not maybe even aware of, they introduced a 1% levy on remittances sent from the U.S. to Caribbean countries. And that was to take effect from the 31st of December, 2025. And experts have estimated that for every 1% increase in remittance cost, remittance value dropped by about 1.6%. And they did some preliminary calculations to suggest that this could rebound to approximately $2.36 US million reduction in remittances to the ECCU annually, having the greatest impact, they said, on St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada and St. Lucia, because it seems that their people seem to send out more money to that area. You hear what I'm saying? A 1% levy on that. Dominica global remittances over a 10-year period, and I think Ambassador Crispin shared that. I give credit to him a couple of weeks ago on a program on Global View. Dominica global remittances over the period 2014 to 2024 total $1.2 billion. Do you hear me? 1.2 billion Eastern Caribbean dollars. That's approximately 465.1 million US dollars. In 2014, Dominicans, and that is global remittances, the bulk of which I will say comes from the US. So that would take remittances from the US, from England, from Canada. That is Dominicans in the diaspora. That term we like to use, diaspora. Sending monies back home to their people in Dominica. It's one of the core pillars of the economy, and which is going to be impacted by the war as well. In 2014, Dominica sent home $50.4 million. In 2015, $51.9 million. In 2016, $44.0 million. In 2017, $44.4 million. In 2018, $42.1 million. In 2019, $47.5 million. In 2020, that was the year of the start of the COVID, it went down to $33.7 million. So as you can see, there was a drop of well over $10 million. In 2021, we were still within that COVID period. They were still able to send home $40.2 million. In 2022, we sent home $37.8 million. In 2023, we sent home $34.5 million. And in 2024, we sent home $38.6 million. So over that 10-year period, Dominicans overseas remitted back to their country, Dominica, $1.2 billion. You hear the number that I'm talking about?
That's a lot of money.
$1.2 billion. Okay. A lot of it goes in, of course, in consumables, I would imagine. But clearly, if there is a war, that too is going to be impacted. There'll be less remittances coming in. So there'll be less support for the economy. So again, what can we do? I think I would begin by saying we need to have a call to action. And that call to action, of course, must be, like I quoted from the economist Paul Romer, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. So we must not waste what we can do as a people in this crisis. There are a number of things we need to do, but specifically, I think we have to recognize the fact that we are dependent so heavily on the U.S. for our goods and spending so much on those items. We have a change of habits, a change of attitude, a change of minds, introduction of some policies that can help drive a more vibrant economy for people in light of what's taking place. I normally listen on a Thursday morning to Rosemary from ESMA. And interestingly, I listened to her this morning, and she was outlining the various products that are available at ESMA. And 90% of them, I'm sure, are imported from outside. I would swear, 90%, I'll bet my money down. But let's take one example. She said there that jumbo shrimp, she said about 21 to 30 shrimps in a pound. That was at $40.95. So if you have a family of 4, I would imagine you need at least 2 pounds of that shrimp. So that is $80.90 just for the shrimp. Just for the shrimp. You haven't put rice or food or gravy or anything else. So clearly, a family of 4 who wants an appetite or have the taste bud of having shrimp, you're looking at clearly a food bill of at least $200, $300, $400 just for that one meal. Just for that one meal. I mean, she mentioned other stuff like Philadelphia cream cheese, $24. A free pound cream cheese regular, $53. Bagels, $12.50. 10-pound leg quarters, $38. So, and as I said, most of those things will be coming from outside. So the question remains now, what do we do? And here's what I want to propose. I think, as I said, we must not panic. We must be prepared, and we must stay focused. That's something I learned as an old scout. Always be prepared, do not panic in situations, and stay focused. So therefore, in light of that geopolitical...
somebody's asking a question quickly there. I see a question. Matt, ask him, Mr. Thomas, whether he can find percentage per country island midden with money sent overseas. In other words, which island of the Caribbean may be receiving the most remittances from our other diaspora? Would you be able to take yes?
Yeah, I don't have it before me as we speak, but Mark, that is easily obtainable. And by the way, all that information I presented there are right under the World Bank. So these are authentic information. That's not stuff I'm just taking off from the top of my head.
And somebody's
that is World Bank data.
Well,
but I don't have that specific.
But you can find it. You can find it though.
But I can find it. Oh yeah, I can find it. So I'll be happy to come back on your program where we can have even a little more discussion on remittances, because that's very important.
But somebody else is asking what does my guest, what do my guests, what would you define as remittances? Your explanation. To break it down for them.
Remittances is any money that is sent from overseas. So somebody sends the money order that people go pick up at what you call it
At Western Union, MoneyGram,
or
yes.
wherever you pick up that money from. That is what it is. That's remittances, and that does not take into account, Mark, the barrel economy. That is separate. The barrel economy is something different. So persons who send down 2 barrels a month or 1 barrel a month or whatever, that is in addition to the remittances. The remittances is hard cash, large. That is why the U.S. government is saying now we're going to apply a 1% levy on whatever money that is leaving. Because when this person sends this money down, they go to places like Walmart, to MoneyGram, Western Union. That is where they go. And when you go to send those monies down, the first thing they ask you for is your ID. So you have to produce an ID, okay? You have to produce an address, a phone number. Who is the money going to? Well, who is the money coming from? Who is the money going to? So that is information that the U.S. government has. It's at their disposal. All of these financial institutions have to make that information available to the U.S. government. So the U.S. government can know that $40 million went down to Dominica last year or 2024 or 2025. And on the basis of that, they're saying that they're going to charge a 1% levy. So clearly that is going to impact persons who are not just receiving, but persons who are sending. Because if the situation gets dire up here in the U.S., persons might be in a situation where they're not able to send as much as they would like to. And that in itself would have an impact on our people. But let me just quickly go into...
Before you conclude there, somebody's asking, does the remittances, as you say, would that include maybe some loan payments to the NCCU, etc.?
No. That would not include the loan payment. Well, put it this way. Put it maybe yes in a sense. Because if, say, for example, I have my son or my cousin in Dominica who needs money to help him pay his loan or something of that nature, and I said money for him, that's a remittance. But it would not be if I now have my house in Dominica and I'm paying a mortgage and I'm sending to pay the mortgage. I don't think that would fall under the category of remittances.
I understand. Yes,
but let me say, Matt, in light, as I said, of the geopolitical tension in the Middle East involving the U.S., United States, Israel, and Iran, our small island development states like Dominica must be prepared for possible direct and indirect impact. One caller mentioned too that we need to do that in unison as a region. And here are a couple of things that comes to mind. Global fuel price increase, okay? And we know you've heard before it said that the Strait of Hormuz is between the Persian Gulf and Oman, and that is where 20% of oil, liquefied natural gas passes through. Now, if Iran shuts that down, you know what's going to happen. I think Tossi mentioned the price of the barrel of oil. I think Ambassador Crispin alluded to that too yesterday. It's going to go up.
As much as $200 a barrel. That's a lot.
Exactly. It impacts everything. So think about Domlek, who is used with oil, and all these other places that use things. The bus driver taking the tourists around oil, gas, all of that is going to be impacted. Then we have, of course, shipping delays and freight cost increases. That's another area that CARICOM needs to focus on. Most of our goods come through the U.S. or port in the U.S., namely Miami. I think it was at one meeting they had recently where Jamaica proposed that we need to. I think it was the chairman. I think it was of ECCB proposed the need for there to be a revisit of the ports that we use in the region, so as not to be totally dependent on one U.S. port, because even some goods that might say, for example, come from China would find itself going through a U.S. port, namely the port of Miami. So we need to begin to figure out, well, are there alternatives? Okay? Governor Timothy and Antoine in spring of last year, just last year in spring, at the IMF World Bank spring meeting, suggested that Dominican Republic and Panama as potential hubs. This is perhaps on the basis of their strategic geographic location, already existing infrastructure and connectivity of their port. So here he's saying that, hey, we need to look at alternatives, and rather than have all our shipping going through the U.S. port. So that's going to be affected. Food import disruption, supply chain bottleneck, inflationary pressures. So what do we need to do as a Dominican? We need to strengthen our national resilience by promoting food security in a very responsible consumption and community self-reliance manner. We need to have a mission whereby we can mobilize our citizens. I think one of the callers mentioned it. The school, the farmers, the businesses, and community organizations to proactively prepare for potential supply chain disruption without panic. Let me underscore that. Without panic. Ensuring that, therefore, continuity of food access, fluid stability, and national unity. You recall, Matt, when you had that gas shortage a year ago, what kind of chaos that took place in the country. So we need to do that. And this is what I will suggest some key areas that can be considered. But most of the time, I know Prime Minister Kerry say we come and we bash his government, we bash him, but we don't come with suggestions. So I want to propose some suggestions today that would help mitigate some of the pressures that we are likely to face. If we're looking at the national security measures, food security measures, what are some of the things that we can do? First of all, government and institutions should prioritize. And by that I mean they need to increase their strategic food reserves. What I mean by that, Dexia is the agency that gets rice, flour, sugar, and all that stuff. They need to be prepared, not from a panic mode, but from a focused and a prepared mode.
But some people might say, Alvin, these are somewhat long-term projections. What about short-term projections? Because, I mean, this crisis is affecting us now. We need to react right now.
No, they can begin to take stock now, right away, almost immediately, and see what their stockpiles look like on some of the basic staples. They can do that and move long-term. And what that will do, it will put us in that frame of mind and that give us that awareness that this thing is important. The other area I was just about to mention was support local farmers. Yesterday, Crispin mentioned Iran, a big producer of urea that is used in fertilizer. We need to get with our local farmers and see what the situation is now as it relates to that particular situation and their input. We need to encourage short cycle crop production. By that I'm talking about dashing, sweet potato, lettuce, tomatoes. We need to monitor our fuel reserves and ensure contingency supply planning. So we can't wait when the gas shortage comes around and say, oh, we have a gas shortage. We need to do that now. And we need to do that both at a national level and at a regional OECS level has to be coordinated.
All right, Alvin, I'm going to take you off on that note because we don't have too much time. And there are a lot of people trying to make their own input. Alvin Thomas weighing in on this crisis in the Middle East and the possible implications or repercussions. Somebody says we don't only have to tie our waist, we have to tie our stomachs. But that's the reality on the ground, huh? This war with Israel and Iran and the United States. Believe me, I heard President Trump talking about some time ago it would be short-lived, but you know how this Muslims behave. You know, I have a Muslim friend. Maybe one of these days I will invite him to come here and he'll speak to why these Muslims, although he's Dominican, why, you know, it appears they don't really care about death, you know? Like us Dominicans, they will die for anything, for what they believe. Yeah. Hello, talk to me on the telephone. We're going to take a few calls and we'll wrap it up there at the 3 o'clock hour. Are you the caller? Yes?
Yes, Matt.
Yes.
But it's very serious, Matt.
Very serious.
To understand, Matt, we have to understand that in Dominica, we can grow a lot of food for own use, and that has to be done and done now, Matt. As you made the point about short crops and dashing and tanya, potato, we have to plant a lot more melon and cucumbers and those things there, Matt, And Matt, we have to also think of the long term in that we must also be able to have enough food on island, because we do not know when we're going to have these kind of problems. Because if food stop coming from America for 2 months, we will be dead, Matt. So, and Matt, we have the conditions in Dominica where we can grow our own food. Matt, we can grow our own chicken, our own pigs and those things there, Matt. The government must look at this thing and do a serious thing, Matt, and get everybody involved and let us have enough food for food security. We need to do that and do that now, Matt. Okay?
Well, I hope the policymakers are listening, and of course we'll do something about it. But clearly, we have to tie our waists. Somebody's asking us, saying to the Chinese, why don't you show Dominicans how to plant rice, how to grow rice? Alvin, somebody says he's seeing here on Facebook, Alvin Thomas sure did not listen to Dr. Drew's address where he talks about food security. Dr. Drew did address the issue in his speech, okay?
Kitchen appliances, even home decor too. Lumber, all your garden supplies, plumbing, welding, electrical supplies. Visit Do It Center at the former Jane Asset Hardware location on Goodwill Road. Call us at 255-6890. Do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, Do It Center.
Iran-Israeli war going on. Paint a picture of what the actuality is. I know you have seen some bombs. All right, somebody saying, man, think about it. If the Europeans came here and say the Bible told them that the land is theirs and that all Dominicans should go, won't you be mad? Won't you fight for your land? You need to get someone to explain to you the root of the cause of this conflict and the Balfour Declaration. The Christians have caused this conflict. The Europeans, Christians, with the white Jesus. Now, you think Dominicans are really, really, really prepared to fight for this land called Dominica? Do you think we are as patriotic as the Muslims in the Middle East? I'm just asking the question. We're going to take a break and then we'll come back, Dominica, and maybe we'll give you the latest in the conflict. Coming back.
Just me goal winning again. Same place outside Flossies. I tried to dock in, but you had time see me. Where? Story start again. Million, lot of my power we got, huh? So like a fella, I said the same thing you doing, shopping at Flossies, and you don't have to tell me the same thing you tell me last time because I'm busy. It's to hear him way. You reckon? I'm my pocket anymore. I won't tell you that I save money in food and drinks when I buy quantity. I save more. Oh, shucks, man. Well, when you're still telling me, I know already. To pack a respect him, why? But it can even pepper palais. I will tell all my friends from London, US and Dominica to come to Flossies, right next to the Rosa Market. Open Sunday to Saturday. Flossies can't do but 2 years.
Dominicans, enjoy your property, protect your property, you homeowner and businessman, protect your property, enjoy your property. Can't wait for the hurricane, can't wait till you flood again, can't wait till your roof fly out and all your business coming out. Remember, no insurance company will insure your property when a storm is approaching. Get ahead of the hurricane season. Insure with a company who gives you the assurance of payment for your valid claim. Come speak with us today at the New India Assurance Company Limited, upstairs AC Shillingford and Company Limited, 24 King George Street, Roseau. Bring along an up-to-date valuation from a qualified engineer and get insured today.
Madam Boy Man, he put a Bryce and Company. Yearly Rice and Company, the only company I know with Bryce was cooking water and back and neck. Now in the last valley short, I said Bryce. In the old place nefla where you have a roofing material and seamless gutter ring. Yes, 24 gauge governors, all colors. Ever open Nipugas agent, they program the computer to give you the exact size you want. And the seamless guttering aluminum that can better withstand the elements you have in an easy way. So no leaking after a while. And so much more. Bryce and Company, the act by 8 bank close to the old mill at Enfield. Telephone 617-2468.
If you know quality, then you must know the manufacturers of Dominica's finest rums, Belfast Estate Limited. Over 80 years leading the industry with exceptional standards and formidable customer service. We present the manufacturers of BB Rum, Soca Rum, Red Cap Rum, Cask Rum, and the signature Belfast Estate Rum Punch. With island-wide distribution daily, Belfast Estate Limited has cemented its mark as the distributor of choice for products like Eldorado range of rums and creams, Kubali Bear, Corona Bear, Guinness, Root Boy Drink, and of course, Sunglass Juices, Toppers Snacks, Vitamalt, and Pine Hill Juices. Call the office at 440-7032 or visit the distribution outlet at Jimmy Dominica. Follow on Facebook or Instagram at Belfast Estate. Belfast Estate Limited, your leading manufacturer and distributor of rums in Dominica.
In Dominica's case, I actually located Tallboy as being the person who eventually introduced what we now know as a full-fledged hand, with full scales into Dominica. When he came back to Dominica one time in the late 50s, early 60s, he brought with him a pan made in Trinidad.
Steel pan tattoo.
Dominica at one point had about 7 or 8 full-fledged steel bands, you know. And that's why Pont Michel actually holds a place of prominence in steel pan in Dominica. There was a full-fledged steel pan. In Portsmouth, there was a hand group in Grand Bay. There was a steel band also in Maho. There was a steel band in Massac. In the city, we had 3 steel bands.
Steel band part 2 and Creole and bit with Afatan, Afi, Matty and friends. Those Friday on the big station from 10:45 a.m.
So all of these, you can see there was a really interesting support coming from the private commercial sector for the art form. And it wasn't just in mouth. It wasn't just even in finance, because these steel bands used to be used throughout the year.
Dominica, let's retune our bodies, minds, and spirits to the genius of Tolway Chance. Stafford Joseph, Miguel W., Aaron Emmanuel, Owen Banwell, and others, and awaken this slipping giant. Steve Van Part 2 with Afi, Matty, and friends, hosted by Ambassador Prince Wax. And the big station Q95 FM by Prince Friday from 10:45 a.m. The time is now. There we go. The Pan Resurgence. The Pan Renaissance, the rise of the children. will not forgive us.
The steel band playing the Calypso on the road was what determined what was the favorite for the year, and we now know it as the Wood March.
Supplies for you, kitchen appliances, even home decor too. Lumber, lawn, all your garden supplies, plumbing, welding, electrical supplies. Visit Do It Center at the former Jane Asset Hardware location on Goodwill Road. Call us at 255-6890. Do it. Center.
Let's continue the conversation here, looking at the repercussions. Of course, the war in Iraq and the possible implications and repercussions for us here in the region. We've been advised to tie our waist. Hello?
Matt, good afternoon.
Yeah.
You know, listening to Afi telling you that, Matt, we have some of the most backward leaders in the region. Let me say why I say that. Afi and men like him and many other citizens have been speaking of these things. And nobody listens. And now they are so ignorant, they're not going to listen. And that came out of what Trevor just told you in that interview, man. So let me drive it home to you. Now, more important than ever, with a war taking place on the other side of the globe, that some people will understand the effects of your action has a reaction, because when the chicken come home to roost, it's too late. Mr. Martin keep telling you, when you do something, you do it well. You just don't do things half-ass, willy-nilly, and like he mentioned, the minister tell me do this. But there are times in life a man must sit down and assess his actions. And before you make a move, you assess what you're gonna do. If you make that move, what are the precautionary measures you're gonna take? What are the downfall? In other words, you measure the pros and cons, man. You hear people talking at chess. A chess game is you always watch the move you make before you move. You make 3-4 thoughts of moves ahead before you make one move, because it's not like you playing draft. It's not that simple. And listening to Afi bring home what Tossi just said in a personal level, and what Afi is telling you is on a national level. And there are a lot of our people listening right now who will not grasp the depth of it. And that's a sad part about it. But I wanted to call you and say this, man. We at a crossroads. I've always tell you, Dominica is at the crossroads. I don't know that there would be a war in Iran today and 12 countries in the Middle East under fire. But I knew for a fact, everything you do has a reaction. Everything you do has consequences. And as a thinking man, you must always think of your action. Matt, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. I think there's another voice note from you too. Yes? Mm-hmm.
You know, Matt, let me say something. The issue of food security is not a new thing that these guys been talking about. I've posted some article, I think, on your page and some other pages that I listen to sometimes. You remember maybe about 4 years ago, that Hillary and her entourage went to Guyana with Roosevelt Skerrit for the same issue, food security. And when they came back, you know, Roosevelt Skerrit was making joke about he have his little garden, he's a farmer behind the house. Joke. And that's what it has been, joke, man. The region has never taken a food security issue like Guyana is taking it currently, man. And since that time, Guyana is on a move to make food security a priority. And today, Guyana is ready to feed the region and places further yonder, man. I think I sent you that article also. You know, the problem is we are reactionary. They say you prepare for war in time of peace, man. And we never see that because in time of peace, we look at everything else, do everything else, and don't prepare ourselves. You hear how much money goes to Dominique in remittances, okay? So we doubt that the people will suffer. Because if you have a piece of land, in a land with so much good land and water, man, you could plant a tomato tree. You could plant in pots. You could do any little thing to be self-sufficient to a certain level. It wouldn't give you everything. But my issue is the leaders in the region have never taken that too serious. They are dependent on foreign imports. And even China today, the economy is failing. And they're talking about trying to bring the economy back to about 4%. So the other thing that Alvin mentioned about using other ports, they spoke about in CACA meeting. But there is a port that China just opened in Peru. And they're trying to go around certain ports in America, so you won't be getting too much of America imports coming because the Chinese control that port in Peru. Long story, I'm not going to bore you with that.
All right, Dominic, it's 2:57 in the afternoon. We're going to take our final break and we'll come back to get the closing comments and we'll wrap it up here for the afternoon.
Dominicans, enjoy your property, protect your property. You homeowner and businessman, protect your property, enjoy your property. Can't wait for the hurricane, can't wait till you flood again, can't wait till your roof fly out and all your business coming out. Remember, no insurance will insure your property when a storm is approaching. Get ahead of the hurricane season. Insure with a company who gives you the assurance of payment for your valid claim. Come speak with us today at the New India Assurance Company Limited, upstairs AC Shillingford and Company Limited, 24 King George Street, Roseau. Bring along an up-to-date valuation from a qualified engineer and get insured today.
If you know quality, then you must know the manufacturers of Dominica devices.
I'm going to wrap up with this one in the afternoon. Singing Sandra. Oh, how timely.
Instruction from heaven since time began. And still limited time and time again by man and every man. Yet man wouldn't learn from history. It makes them more violent. Producing deadly weapons with nothing but evil intent. So the war will never be over. Peace will never be seen. Long as man in his quest for power keep destroying fellow human beings. Fellow human beings. I'm telling you, nobody, nobody. When you're ready to think of it, nobody wins the war. But the agony of defeat will linger. They constellating one another and superpower. Looking for more power. As long as violence and aggression still dwell in the hearts of man, brother, the war will go on. It cannot be won. No, the war will go on. It cannot be won. Fall out from what scale? Plenty agony, plenty pain. Economy left in shambles that may never rise up again. Collapse of the money system, disruption of foreign trade. Turning against their leaders for the plan that they have made. Environmental pollution, radiation taking its course, and the thousands that die in battle over thousands of human resource. Of course, I'm telling you, nobody, oh, nobody. When you're ready to think of it, nobody. Nobody wins a war. The brutal clash of ideology can make us social anarchy and life reduced to pitiful dimension. The falling back of progress and growth for entire generations. The war will go on. It cannot be won. The war will go on. It cannot be won. War is just like a racket. It pays dividends for a few. But what does it profit the masses? I mean, laymen like me and you. While the leaders train their chess game, within the masses are born with political propaganda. The masses still go on. The soldiers, they never started, but they give their life easily. While the leaders are in a safe place, working on strategy. So you see, I'm telling you, nobody, oh, nobody. When you really look at it, nobody wins a war. It has been the passage of history with the blood of the weak and the mighty. Great cultures vanished completely. Oceans create and destroy political boundaries as it goes on. This love cannot be won. The war will go on. No, the war will go on. It cannot be won. I'll set the voice them that conquer and take over. It doesn't matter how many people that wipe out in the massacre. The enemy must be vanquished. The battle has to be won. But the conflict will never be over. Because the enemy that there'll always be more dictators, more Hitler, more Saddam Hussein. And with these lunatics in power, it will just start all over again. And again, I'm telling you, nobody, oh, nobody. When you really think of it, nobody wins a war. The spiritual revolution to stop the brutal aggression. Always peace in the world will always be on the line. As long as the quest for wealth and power still live in the hearts of man, the war will go on. It cannot be won. No, the war will go on. It cannot be won. The war will go on. Peace in the world. The war will go on. We need a spiritual revolution. The war will go on. The war will go on. The war will go on. I start to study the whole universe. How come this will get so corrupt and cursed? Things that things are, but it's not like before. Man's life in turmoil with disaster and war. But so, with the nuclear, they stand the nuclear. The Indians will smash some world flat. And they don't care about the master's plan. But every day, man seeking to destroy man. But I, cause it was never meant to be. Man supposed to dwell in harmony. But because of selfish ways, man create things to stop in his days, but in this comfort and strife. What a life, what a life. But in this comfort and strife, what a life. In these times, but these are the signs of the end of time. La 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 la. When mankind had the holy first sunrise, it was to him was like a paradise. But up to now, to his ways he never take heed. Now he's at war with himself because of his greed. I read, when they drop the bomb in Hiroshima, in history it is the worst disaster. It is of millions of people dead. Yet every day, man improving on new warhead. It's red, but it was never meant to be. Man supposed to dwell in harmony. But because of selfish ways,